I would with the manager who I'm just trying to introduce the law to, probably for the first time. But this is a slide I think that should be added to this book. Where's the, how do I get to the
Go down
current
to the
slide?
bottom right. Bottom right.
Right here.
And then go up. See that little, this
Right here.
little V?
I want to pull this up
Yeah,
on the whole
this,
slide.
that thing. No,
That
next,
one.
no, next one.
That one.
Yep.
So this includes legal and compliance. So it's not just the fair employment practice, immigration, wage and salary, and the FMLA and HIPAA, but we talk about e-workplace issues as compliance, and we talk about privacy and confidentiality. And then there are, I want to go back. Hang on. Because it just occurred to me, I didn't really include a lot of compliance in here, but as you guys were talking about it, we definitely want to, we talk about potential risks that internal controls, those kinds of things with the managers, and making sure that they are familiar with the compliance risks that come with their area, whether that's research, taxation, and then safety, fraudulent financial activities. You see, I mean, there's a slew of them, and then just making sure they understand the implications and the importance of compliance as far as being the public sector and a higher ed university. And then we just talk about ways to keys to compliance, you know, and how you are applying your policies and procedures when it comes to that. We talk about that with managers. So, you know, like I said, it's a different audience, so it was a little challenging for me to pick. But everything's here. Like, you know, if you're talking about what's an inventory of what we have, it's just in how we present it. We talk fair employment, you know, how much detail do we want to get in the protected classes, and then of course understanding what the local protected classes are, because some people may not know that we just included transgender as a protected class, right, to UVA's local level. And so you know, this was created through Michael Schwartz and Raj from the Provost's office, so it provides the university's perspective, not just you know, the perspective of the schools and departments. And so it just depends on how much, you know, how specific do we want, how much detail do we want to get into what this means versus as an HR professional, you know, how to know what your resources are, where to go, you know, who did it. So I certainly put up the resources, the areas, you know, so if you do tap into federal issues, where do you go? You know, you go to EOP, or do you go to HRCS and or UHR, you know, and knowing those places to go for FMLA and HIPAA and privacy and confidentiality and records. You know, records management should probably be on here as well. And we don't some of those we don't talk to about managers because they don't have that responsibility. So this is probably missing some information for the audience of the HR professional.
I think though that your point right there is very well taken about, I was just looking at this and thinking as you're talking through, we need to give for the university overview, so HR professionals who know the general laws, most likely a lot of them might even be certified, so they really do.
Right.
But how are we different here?
Right.
We have offices and support or contacts for all these different things. So, you know, if you're ADA, you know, it's this office. If you're, you know, if you have questions about FLISA and comp, you might talk to this person. So maybe some sort of like, I don't want to use the word cheat sheet, but that's the best thing I can think of, where if you're one HR and you're out and you're flying free in your paradise island of autonomy, you are going to be the person contacting
Yes.
these offices, not someone on behalf of you.
Right.
And so not knowing, I guess I've not worked in the private sector, but I imagine anyone who has, Michael, that you are the contact and then you have an attorney, right? And there, but here, we probably want something in there about general counsel, maybe that'll
Right.
come up with ER.
Right.
But when do you talk to general counsel? When do you talk to EOP? When do you talk to, in the School of Medicine, Mark Bowman for ADA work? When do you talk to, who are your resources across grounds? And we probably need something on that.
Yeah, so what I can do is just add to this, because like I said, there's some pieces missing. Timesheets, for example, when we get into the systems, who is the contact for questions with timesheets? So when I went through this, I didn't try to manipulate the information for the audience. So now that I have a better understanding of what we're looking for, I can do that and add. We can just add to the book, to the notebook.
Well, I mean, the other thing is interesting to think about is having the resources of what managers are being told, right? So this,
Yeah, I agree.
right? So, hey, you want to know what the managers are being told? Here are the presentations that we give them, right?
Right.
Then there's the
Right.
then
Yes.
there's the sort of
Yes.
what you as what then is extra or complimentary.
Right, because this is what we're telling the managers, and I right, and we do go through employee types, the recruitment and hiring piece. So we hit the systems,
Right.
the hiring process. We hit performance management, and this is at a very high level. I talk about timekeeping because for managers that's extremely important. And kind of hot spots, that trouble where they get in. And then we introduce the policy directory and key policies from an HR perspective that they need to know about. Standards of conduct, the grievance. We talked about Respect Act. And then that's when I jump into the legal compliance. And this is what we're training, preparing for leadership. And then all of this, each one of these areas, performance management, standards of conduct, hiring, then they all break down into their own 2 or 3 hour presentation once you become a manager. So I think that's important for HR professionals to know so they can help support the managers in their areas. But then on the other side, you have, okay, now for you, when you get questions on Respect Act, sexual harassment, timekeeping, where do you go?
Right.
And who are your go-to people? So
Well, yeah, and I think that, I mean, even if you are an HR professional, having this as a refresher is probably a good thing,
yes,
right?
I agree.
So I think having all of it up,
Okay.
and then we now start to develop a separate, if it's a checklist or a
Yeah,
presentation on the HR professional sort of,
And I would say, I would train as if even if someone can be certified
Right.
and they haven't dealt with a certain
Yeah.
situation. And when we did the 3-day training, Casey and I did both civil employment law, and I stood up there and asked them questions, and people didn't know.
right,
Or they were just confused because they probably haven't done it in a long time, and so, or they thought one thing was the other, and so I think that's something valuable for all of us to just keep in mind that we all need refreshers.
yeah.
Yeah, it is, because having come from a public agency where we dealt with the state grievance procedure, UVA's process is different. The written notice, the progressive discipline, and how we handle grievance steps and hearings is totally different. So you can't walk in thinking you know exactly what's going to happen, even if you've worked with those systems at other employers before.
Right.
So the information's there, and then like I said, each one of these areas has more information when we get to the individual training. So it's just a matter of how we put it together for the HR professional.
Yeah, so maybe the thing to do is, so you're the most familiar with all of this. Maybe you just start to keep a list of, you don't have to develop it, but at least
Right.
what's not here.
Yes, right.
That we'd want to expand for HR professionals, and then we can start to build
Yes.
that out, right?
Yeah, and that I can do that, especially using this, because
Yeah.
this is going to help me see what's missing out here.
Yeah.
Because the systems overview What I don't talk to managers about is Oracle, because most managers don't
Right.
use Oracle. And, what was the other? Image Now, they
Yeah.
don't use Image Now.
Right.
And there was one more, the I-9. We talk about the I-9 compliance laws and the I-9 specialists, but we don't get into the system with
Right.
them. So that would need to be added
Right.
to this. With Lead At, Jobs At,
Yeah.
timekeeping.
Right.
So
Well, I think it's great, because then
Yeah.
you could have someone that a manager comes to them and they can just pull out the pieces
Right.
that
yes.
are relevant and
Right.
say, let's talk about it, and let
Right.
me give you the resources that you might need
Right.
in
Right.
order
It's
to
already
be
here. We
able
don't
to-
need to
Right.
read it in.
Exactly.
Right. I think it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so we talk about the Uniform Services Employment Act, HIPAA, which is
Yeah.
very important for this institution.